Welcome to the iPhoneography podcast. I'm Greg McMillan, and it is, as we record, Monday, November 3rd. And as you can see down in the corner, down over here, it says that I am the number one Dodgers fan. And that's because I lost the bet. If you were listening to the last show, Dwight and I had come to the realization that the Toronto Blue Jays and the Los Angeles Dodgers were playing in the World Series. And whoever's team won, the other guy had to put their number one fan thing in the bottom of the screen. So it was a nail biter. I don't have to tell you, and I'm sure most of you people that are listening have either watched it or heard something about it. But for now, let's bring in the number one Dodgers fan, Mr. Dwight Broman. Hey, Dwight.
Hey, Greg. Yeah, that was a heartbreaking loss for you guys. It just came down to such small little executions, and that was a crazy series.
Yeah, it was. And Shane says, stop crying, Drag. Now, I might as well explain the name there. In the Bloody Legends Facebook group admin messenger chat, there's been a running debate on whether GIF is the GIF is pronounced GIF or GIF. And Shane says, my voice is a little soft. Okay, I'm a little closer to the mic. How's that? Is that any better, Shane?
Yeah, that's better.
So, because my name's Greg with a hard G, they call me Dreg, and they spell it with the J. So that's where that comes from. But, well, now we'll bring in the number one Pittsburgh Steelers fan, Mr. Dave Podner. How you doing, Dave?
There we go. Doing good. I haven't had to worry about baseball in reality, the last few years, so cool.
Yeah. Well, there's always hope. I mean, hey, look at the Blue Jays. The Blue Jays they haven't won the World Series since 1993, so it's been 32 years. The couple of times they've got the divisional series. One time recently they won the. How does that work? Anyway, I don't know. They just haven't made it to the World Series since then. And yeah, I think they won the pennant. Well, isn't that the
that's getting to
divisional
the league series that gets you to the thing, right? So they've won everything but that recently in recent years. But anyway, it was definitely a nail biter that last game, and it's just it's the way it is. That's sports for you. So anyway, tonight we are going to talk about third-party camera apps. Now, there's so many of these apps in the App Store that there's no way we could cover, any more than what we're going to do tonight, because it could be, the conversation could last as long as that Monday night game of the World Series that went 18 innings. So, the Apple camera is pretty good. It's really good. I mean, Apple puts so much energy into that camera. I heard somewhere how many people they have in their staff that work on that, and I'm still getting people saying I'm pretty soft audio. Okay, I don't know why that is. Let me turn the gain up. I'll try that. Okay, is that any better? Dwight, do you find my audio is a little better?
I think that's a little better.
Okay.
I think
I just don't want to
far from the microphone too.
You're definitely.
It's right here. It's like that far away, and usually it's a little further.
I'll say, Greg, I'm
wondering if it's because
definitely softer than Dwight.
Okay, I wonder if it's because I'm using Safari this time for StreamYard instead of Chrome. I usually use Chrome, but I thought I would just give it a shot, see how it went. There's a couple of technical things that aren't supported in Safari right now, so maybe that has something to do with it. One of them has something to do with the background noise and noise cancellation in the background or whatever. But anyway, I can adjust this, this audio in post if I have to. So Dale is 30 seconds late. 30 seconds. Wonder what he means by that. Anyway, so yeah, like Apple puts a lot of attention and effort into their camera app. I mean, Shane says he's lost my voice after crying blue tears for the past few days. Well, it was pretty upsetting, but no, I don't cry over that stuff. But anyway, he's probably talking about the profile pic I had up with it was a mean looking blue jay, and I put a tear running down his eye. But no, the Apple camera is definitely, right up there with the best of them as far as phone cameras go, in my opinion. Yeah, and for general use, we won't get into astrophotography because that's another podcast. But they do put a lot of time and effort into it to make it as good as they can, and for the most part, it does what it needs to do for people until it doesn't. And that's where these things come in that we're going to talk about here. So we've each got, we each had two that we were going to talk about until I started counting up all the, as you know, we show pictures and stuff throughout the episode, and they go into the podcast player where you can see them on the podcast player screen, because we are a audio program talking about a visual medium, and we try to make it work. And YouTube channel is different. On the YouTube channel, you can see it. That's all fine, well, and good. But when it comes to looking at pictures and what we're talking about on the podcast, we want to show you what we're talking about. And in order to do that, we got to have, either screenshots or images to talk about. And when we had two apps each, we had way too many images to worry about. And when I put them into the file for the audio and have chapter marks, it was going to have just way too many. It probably would have broke the edit or the feed somehow. But anyway, so we're each going to do one, and we're going to start with yours, Dave. And this is one that you've talked about briefly at one point, but you never really got to get into any detail about it.
Yeah.
So just tell folks what it is, and while you're introducing it, I'll get your images ready to show here.
Sure. The app is called Postpic, Postpic. The icon kind of looks like the old Instagram from 15 years ago icon, and it's a one-person development, so it's very, very small, obviously. And basically, it is a film emulation, similar to other ones like Dwight's going to talk about Mood, or you have other ones that are like it. I like the fact that it gives you options, but it doesn't overwhelm you with options. You do get live previews on the screen, which is something I really like. I really hate not having that live preview to get a feeling for what it's going to look like. And it does offer a good amount of editing after the fact. It also has built into it a social aspect where you can share it in its own social platform, if you will, and share what they call recipes that you use to which of the filters you use, and then after you do that, what adjustments you do, so you can share them with other people and download theirs if you want to use it. So it's more than just a simple, take a picture. There's a social aspect, and then, like I said, the sharing of the presets, so you can see what someone else has done and see if you're interested in using it or not. So it's a nice little program. It's quick and easy to use. The only thing I really have a little bit of an issue, it doesn't handle horizontal photos well. When you do your camera sideways for a horizontal photo, so you're getting in landscape, it still shows it in your feed inside of the app as vertical, and it'll export it.
Okay, so having said that, Dave, let's bring that up.
Okay. So when you first enter the app here, this is your kind of your home page here when you first enter the app. So you can see you're not really going right to the camera. This is photos that I have taken inside of this app, or imported if I wanted to use their editing tools for photos. So this is kind of the internal
is the camera interface, is it like we don't have any screenshots of the camera interface itself? Is there anything about it that stands out, or are we going to kind of get a feel for it?
That. It's very simple. I will say this. It is very simple. The fact of it has just the button in the middle, and it has a kind of a carousel fan-like where you can select the different presets. So you can just kind of use your one thumb and kind of scroll through those. But it's not a scroll going straight across, it's in an arc. So you can try the different presets and see if you like something in particular, or if you want to go just with the plain one, if you will.
Right. Yeah. So this is basically like the gallery, I guess you could say.
Exactly.
And like you say, it's got your horizontal images have been flipped sideways on you because for whatever reason they prefer that portrait orientation.
And I think it may just be the layout here. If you notice that if you go horizontal, you don't have the grid. My only problem is that when you do export, now it's an easy fix. You just go into edit, go into the crop, and then just flip it over, and then it's no big deal. So it's an easy fix.
Yeah. Right. Okay. So then once you've got your image open.
Yep. So once you have your image taken, the first screen you go to is your presets here. So you have various presets down below. So you do have the previews down below in the thumbnails. So you have a feeling for what the photo looks like after you take it and put the presets on here. So it's kind of, you can just scroll along and see what the different looks are. And some of them are more colorful. Some of them are black and white. So you do have a good variety here of ones you can look at. Now, like I said, the pre-snap, if you will, options are a little bit more limited. So that's something I personally like because I'm not one to sit and then make a lot of adjustments beforehand on a particular screen, then take the photo. I just preference, I like to say, okay, here's something here. Okay, I like this. And then I think there's maybe 8 to 10 presets pre-shot you can use. And you can select it, and then it's quicker to make the photo. Then when you have time, maybe afterwards, you can then take the time to do the edits here. So first step is start with the preset. I will say this, this app is completely free, and there's no, with additional purchase, you get additional features. Everything is free. It's like an old fashioned free app. It's literally someone the developer was like, well, Instagram's no longer for photos. And he kind of liked how Instagram at one time had the filters and everything kind of baked in. So this was his trying at making a new version, if you will.
Yeah. And, let's just back up real quick for just 1 second here. In the intro, I said, the Apple camera is really great and until it isn't, right? So obviously an app like this would be, you'd want to go to something like this if you wanted to, like the Apple camera has different filters and things like dramatic and with the photographic styles and all that stuff. But so where would this one pick up where that kind of stuff left off?
Sure. Oh, actually, 1 second. There we go. I want to make a quick adjustment here. Sorry. So this would really use it where I wanted to have a little bit more options when it came to filtering. The photographic styles are wonderful. I love what Apple did with the photographic styles. However, the older built-in filters are very limiting, and they're really not that great. So if you want to get a little bit more aggressive and have more options with filters, I think this is a good option here.
Yep. Okay. That's fair enough.
Yeah, that's pretty good. And honestly, a lot of times I'm taking photos on when I'm just out doing things, I kind of have to think before I take a shot, do I want to use the regular camera app, or do I want to try to make something more artistic and then use post-pick? Because it's not going to be exactly what I see out, or like an enhanced what I see out. It's going to be more artistic. It's not going to be a straightforward shot that I deal with.
Yeah. Okay. So basically it kind of expands and maybe even satisfies your artistic vision a little better. I guess
Exactly.
you'd say that, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Okay. All right. So there's the presets, there's a nice variety of presets, and then you get into the adjustments.
Right. And then this has the now notice in above the adjustments, it has, first of all, these are all the adjustments. And then it has it broken down by category. So you have your basic, which is your exposure, contrast, saturation. It has your white balance. It has, different effects when it comes to clarity and sharpening. So it actually has a good amount of options available there.
Mm-hmm.
You can't do layers like you can do with Lightroom or Photomator. So it's an effect for the entire photo, but it's really extensive what they give you here.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And having white balance, I think, is pretty cool. Rather than color temperature, say, which is the same thing, really.
Yeah.
Well, it is the same thing, except color temperature. They have that in the Photos app, in the editing suite of the Photos app, but it doesn't affect the color temperature. It doesn't affect the coolness or the warmness of an image the same way as white balance does.
Right.
White balance, I think, it takes a little different approach to it. So I think that's a good one to have. And like you said, it's got clarity. Does it have dehaze?
Yes, it does. Yeah. And actually, I'm going to kind of bring this up on what I have here. So yeah, it goes, like I said, sniffing. It does have one for skin tone also. So it will. So if you're taking a photo, you can and you're making adjustments. A lot of times when you're trying to emphasize a color, it'll mess up someone's skin tone. So you can actually adjust the skin tone there. Yeah, it has a dehaze, a motion blur, halation, bloom, a vignette, adds grain, clarity, and your black and white and vibrancy and everything else. So like I said, it's pretty extensive. Yeah. And I did, by the way, send in chat, I don't know if this be too hard to add later, but a screenshot I just did of the camera layout.
The emulations.
Oh, okay.
No, the emulations. Yes. I'm sorry.
It looks like a fairly simple camera interface. You have your film sims and things like that to select from, and your camera selector. You switch to the selfie cam.
Yeah, it only does the 0.5, 1, and 2x.
Yeah.
So it does. Yeah. So it does not give. It doesn't use the telelens. So I don't know why the person decided that. But yeah, like I said, it's really straightforward in terms of taking the photo itself once you select your emulation from the carousel there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it could be that when the iPhone went from the 3 times to a 5 times tele, maybe they just didn't want to
deal with that,
worry about making it compatible with too many different telephoto cameras. And with the 17 Pros, it would have been back to a 4 times, which would have been, another can of worms for them. But so here's the effects tab.
So there's different effects. There's light leaks, which you can see is kind of options down below. And you can adjust via a slider how intense these all are. So you don't have to have this massive light leak, which kind of overwhelms the picture there. You also can do dust. Literally, it's either white dust or like a darker dust, and different amount, and that paper actually makes it look like you're on crinkled paper or not. So if you want to give it like an antique look to it, and plastic literally looks like you put it under a piece of plastic and the plastic kind of got scrunched up a bit there.
Oh, okay.
I normally don't use the plastic that much, paper a little bit depending on the shot.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's cool.
And then the last one here is the recipes. So
right, yeah.
So where it says here more, that's where you can actually go out and see what other people have as their recipes and example their photos. Down below where it says blue, faded, old, those are ones I've created. So if I just wanted to say, for this particular shot, I like to use this particular preset that I made myself, I can just add that in. And once you take a photo, you make your adjustments, then you can you can save it like I have below, and then you can share it. So you can actually go out to the community and say, okay, here's one I created if you're interested in terms of why it would be useful or not.
Now, the community, it's right within the app
It's
itself,
right
is
within
it?
the app, yeah.
Okay, well, that's cool. And of course, you can add LUTs. So if you have, and LUT stands for lookup table. If you have some LUTs on your computer or whatever, you can import them that way, I guess. So yeah, well, that's pretty cool. And now here is your final image from that example.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this one, I made it a little bit more dramatic with the sky, added a little bit of blue tinge, and I de-emphasized the greenness, if you will, especially like down below. It actually shows a little bit
Like you desaturated it?
desaturated, just working on it. Yeah, I would say desaturate, but also made it where the browns are stronger. So
Oh, okay.
like the empty patches in the lawn in the front show up a little bit more than other presets or other adjustments would show. And also
Okay.
because we've been exceptionally dry here and it's
Yeah.
getting, you can see the date. I took this because that's one of the options. You can actually have a date stamp put onto it. I just kind of
Right. Yeah.
like the look of a date stamp. I don't know why. It's just, it makes it look a little vintage.
Yep.
So this was done on Halloween, and in the middle of the afternoon, like I said, it's just getting dry and very few things are growing anymore. And I
Yeah.
just kind of like the look how that turned out.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. Dwight, any thoughts on this one?
I'm all about film emulations, and the stock camera wasn't designed for me for sure. I really hope that they bring back the switch to be able to turn off that deep fusion processing. I will say that when you shoot and hike, it's fun to play with the photographic styles, but specifically to this app, I mean, this is the kind of stuff that I have fun with, working with different emulations. I'm super turned off by the over processing of the native camera app. So I rarely use it unless I'm shooting in, hike or low light situations. But
Mm.
yeah, no, this is fun, Dave. I'll have to play with it. I did download it. This is one that I just didn't have. And it looks like you have to sign up, and then that's probably so you have access to the community, I would imagine. So
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah, I'll play around with this and see what I can come up with. But yeah, this is a lot of fun.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. There's a lot of film sim things. Like, I mean, even with, you call them like traditional cameras or big boy cameras, like all the Fuji cameras and stuff. They're really big on this kind of thing. But there's been more and more third party camera apps coming into play here. That, oops, I just screwed something up here. Hang on, I'm trying to get my pictures ready to come up here. And
I have most of them, Greg. I have most of them.
Yeah. I think between Dwight and I, we have all the camera apps. But, so like I said earlier, the iPhone camera does what you need it to do until it can't. And, I wanted to get this comment up here because Dale says that their focus around focus is blurry. And that stems over to, the night photography side of things. 26.1 came out today, iOS 26.1, and I'll be curious to see if it doesn't fix some of that stuff. I'm really hoping it does. Shane and Dale, have you guys installed 26.1, and if so, is it any better? I know it's only been out for maybe 3 or 4 hours, I guess, but I'd be interested to see what you guys think. So the one I was going to do is, it's with the Apple camera app. You take a live photo, you can change it to long exposure. You could change it to bounce, loop, different things like that. And one of them is long exposure because it takes a 3-second, almost like a video, I guess you could say, because it records video and audio. And you can make that into a long exposure. But I find that it's just not as good as it could be. So, Reflex brought out one called Reheld, and it's a very, very simple app. that is very but under the hood, it is very, very well built and very sophisticated. So starting with the interface, I just took a screen grab of the bottom part because there's not much to think about on the top side of it, because basically you can tap to focus and then that's it. But on the interface, you have your shutter button in the middle. That's the big green square. And you can select your camera, and it just goes wide, ultra wide, and telephoto. And it just goes to whatever telephoto your phone has. So for mine, the 17 now, it's going to the 4X. With the 16 and the 15, it would go to the 5X. With the 14, it was the 3X. So it's just whatever the native telephoto camera is, that's what it selects. And you select your length of exposure with that dial, or that line at the top, that dial, and it's either 1 second or 30 seconds or anywhere in between. Now, as far as settings go, it's all basically just links to their other things, their store. You can turn on location, and you can activate the indicator. The indicator is that there's 2 plus signs. Sometimes you'll see that in the Apple camera. It's a guide to help hold things still. Because if there's in Reheld, there's a white one and a green one, and you want to keep the white one and the green one lined up as best you can. If they go up and down like this, then you got to shift your phone up and down, and so on. But that's all it is for settings, and it's a very simple app to use. You just hold it still, and you take the shot. Oh, you could tap to focus. So what I would suggest, and I'll get to that in a minute, is tapping to focus here is. There's no exposure adjustment, nothing like that. It's just a simple tap to focus, and that's it. You take the shot. So as far as taking the shot goes, I have my other phone, my second phone on a tripod, taking a picture of me taking a picture. And this is me holding Reheld. I'll hold it really still. And it's going to be hard to see in this picture. When we get to the next one, I'll show you what I mean. But there's a bright area in the water here, and that's where I generally try to tap, because that's going to meter for the brightest part of the image so that it doesn't overexpose. So basically what I do is I hold my elbows tight into my body. I hold the phone rather firmly, and I just slowly exhale as I'm taking the picture. Unless it's a 30-second shot, then I just breathe slowly in and out. But, I just try to be as still as I possibly can, because what Reheld does is, and we'll go to the next one here. So this bright part of the water over here, that's where I was focused on, because I wanted to meter for that so it didn't overexpose. But what Reheld does is it picks up static parts of the frame. So in this case, it would be all the rocks, maybe the trees in the background, but anything that's not moving, that's what it latches onto with its AI. And as it's shooting frames, of course, as you know, long exposure in a phone is a multitude of frames stacked on top of each other and blended together. And then, the exposure is going to be correct and everything else. But it uses those static objects in the frame to line them up. Even if you do move the phone slightly, it's going to line these things up and come up with a clear shot that's long exposure, handheld, no tripod needed. I was on basically the alpha of this app. Like, it was pre-beta, and when I tried taking a shot, I didn't know how it worked, but I would just I was standing there trying to take a 5-second exposure or something, and everything was just all over the place, and you could see the edges of the frames before it was cropped all off, and it was really cool how it was done. And then when I found out that you gotta hold the phone still enough to let it latch onto something solid, once I started doing that, then things started coming in and really improving. But that's how the app works. And so why would you get this app is because the live photos in the Apple camera can only give you a maximum of 3 seconds worth of exposure time. And in my opinion, that's not long enough to make the water look as smooth as it could. This one here was, I want to say it was about 7 or 8 seconds exposure time. And the water looks fairly smooth as it's coming over the rocks over there on the left-hand side. And if it's, I find anything less than 5 or 6 seconds, it looks a little too motley. It's not as smooth. It needs that time to really, stack enough frames on top of each other to smoothen it out better. So that's why I tend to go at least 10 seconds or 8 to 10 seconds on a long exposure shot. It can be used at night. It doesn't have to be just for waterfalls. This was in a parking lot, and they had these rides set up, and that gentleman at the bottom of the screen was kind enough to not move while everybody else moved a little bit, and it just, the lights were nice and bright. And I don't know if this is even edited. It does a pretty good job of capturing the light and all that stuff, and not even really overexposing. Like if this was with something like even longer or re-expose, if it was overexposed, you'd see like a real distinct magenta cast within all the lights and streaks and whatnot. But you can see as around the ride there, it looks a little choppy, like it's not completely smooth. Well, that's probably because it's only probably a 5 or 6 second exposure. So again, if I wanted to do this where it was really smooth, it would have to be at least like a 15, 20, 30 second exposure. But to do this stuff handheld is pretty incredible. It does a great job of lining things up. So this is a real short long exposure. With the water going as fast as it was, I basically just went tap on the screen. The first tap to start the exposure and the second tap to end it. You don't have to go like even a full second. You can set it for 30 seconds and you can tap it to start the exposure and then watch the thing go around. But if you move too much and you want to stop it, you just tap it again and it'll stop the exposure. But it also works for really short exposures, like quarter second, half second, whatever you want. Mm-hmm. And that's basically what I did here. And I think it just gives it a nice effect. And Shane says, the Morse code look to light painting can be resolved if you use an ND filter. Yes, it will let you shoot longer exposure times and the lights will join up in the final image. Yes, that is true. If you use a neutral density filter, what that's doing is it's forcing the camera to take longer exposures and stacking them together. And that does work. I know it does because I've done it before. Generally, when I do that, I'll use re-expose, or maybe I might use re-held, but I'm doing, purposeful long exposures with a tripod and everything else. When I use re-held, it's usually because it's an unexpected shot. I come upon something and not, oh, okay, I don't have my tripod. I'll use re-held and Bob's your uncle, you're done. Dale, he uses ND filters all the time. He uses them for his lightning shots, and that is very effective that way. Could you use re-held for lightning? Probably. I haven't tried it yet, but I'd be interested to see how that pans out. But the problem with that is you'd want it on a tripod, because if you're going to shoot for lightning with re-held, well, it's dark, or most likely dark, and it may not have anything solid in the frame to latch onto to line up your frames. So unless it has something solid to latch onto, then it could just fail as a long exposure. But that's an awesome use for an ND filter right there. But for shots like this, many times I have set it. I don't even set it. It defaults to 1 second, and I know I'm going to take less than a second exposure, and I will just tap the screen. And if I want to go a half a second, I'll watch the little line go around the shutter button, and when it gets halfway, I'll tap it again, and that's my half second exposure. Dale says, if I had the ability to keep shooting 5 to 10 intervals endlessly, maybe. Yeah, that might help the cause for sure. So that's an example of a short exposure with re-held, but then you can go right to the other limit. This is 30 seconds handheld with my iPhone 15 Pro Max a couple years ago, no tripod, and the clarity and the sharpness of the static objects, like the leaves and the rocks and the moss on the rocks and things like that, just blew me away when I took this. The water looks very smooth. There's none of that, Morse code or braided look or however you want to call it. This is one of the best reheld shots I think I've ever taken. Now, yes, I've edited this. I've saturated it a little bit, maybe give it some contrast. I might have given it a wee bit of clarity to help with the darks and the lights where the water goes over the edge, that type of thing. But this is it just blew my mind what Reheld can do. Now, there are at least 2 other apps on the market that can do this, these handheld long exposures, and I just find Reheld does the best job out of all of them, just hands down. I tried the other ones, and I got rid of them because they're just not as good as this one. So yeah, I'm not trying to be a sales guy for Reflex here for their app, but it just really, really works well. And then finally, if like a different application is to make the clouds smooth, like the moving clouds. This is a 30-second exposure at sunrise one time after work, and it captured the color and everything else, and just the clouds are moving fast enough over a 30-second period that they just got this nice blur to them to show the movement in the clouds. Again, I've done this kind of shot many times. Broad daylight, it doesn't matter. It captures the movement of the clouds and makes them nice and smooth. And if there's trees in the image, as long as the wind's not blowing, they're perfectly still. It just does a good job. Makes for a nice long exposure shot. So that's Reheld. Any thoughts or questions on that, guys?
No, that's pretty straightforward. I enjoy using that one as well.
Mm-hmm.
That was a nice shot, that last one.
Thanks.
Like you said,
yeah, go ahead.
I was say the main advantage. I don't want to say main, but the big advantage for Reheld versus the built-in app is actually the parts that don't move. Like you said, the rocks, the parts of the waterfall there, the last one, how sharp those are. You can't get that with the live photos with the long exposure. Again, it's Apple doing, the 90-90 rule. For 90% of the people, 90% of the time, if they even know it exists, they'll throw it on there and go, oh, that's kind of neat looking. But if you want a little bit more than that, that's why you have the third-party apps.
Yeah, for sure. And I just noticed, Dave, the Pittsburgh Penguins are playing the Toronto Maple Leafs tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Just saying. It started 10 minutes ago, apparently. No score yet, I don't think. But anyway. So, where Reheld picks up where the iPhone leaves off is again, it goes way beyond 3 seconds. And but it gives you that handheld experience. I don't know how many times I've been out and I forgot my tripod and I see this, moving water or clouds moving quickly or something. And I thought, oh, I got Reheld. I don't have to worry about my tripod. And it just does such a good job. So Shane says, I'm looking for something else to cry over the Maple Leafs. Well, the Maple Leafs are one of my favorite hockey teams, but not if they're playing, I'm cheering for them. But if they're playing the Boston Bruins, then I'm cheering for the Bruins. Sorry, Leaf fans. That's my jam. But so next we have, Dwight, you're going to talk about one that we had the developer on here. It was an episode or two after you started the show with us, was it not?
Yeah, I think it's been about a year.
Yeah. So go ahead and introduce your app. Oops. Sorry, Dave. I made you disappear for a second.
Yeah, so
go ahead and I'm hitting the wrong damn button. Okay. Go ahead and introduce the app and I'll get your pictures ready.
Yeah, the app I'm going to talk about this evening is the Mood Camera app. And as Greg mentioned, we had Alex Fox, the developer, on, I think it was about a year ago. And I was intrigued by it due to the film emulations. I was a little confused because conversely to what Dave prefers is having a live preview. I like having a live preview as well, but with the mood camera, you don't get that. So it's an app for iOS that's a point and shoot camera that mimics the experience of using an analog film camera like in the olden days that we used to use. In this case, it applies stylized film-like filters in camera, and it focuses really its simplicity and creating characterful photos with minimal editing. And I can attest to that, and I'm kind of blown away by it. It offers presets that emulate different film stocks and provides exposure dial and other analog style controls in the app as well. Y- If you go on the subreddit, there's the feature request is everybody wants a live preview when they're shooting their shots, and Alex is not going to bend on that because he likes the element of surprise as we did have in the day when we had to wait for film to be developed. But I'm very intrigued by this app. If you go to the subreddit Mood Camera, you can see some amazing photos that people are taking with this thing and creating film emulations. I'm seeing posts where longtime Fuji camera users have actually put their cameras down. You can take a film emulation that you like from something, you can post it in there, and somebody will come up with a recipe, using the proper film stock and all the settings. They've recently added, you can add curves into the settings, halation and bloom and a couple other things. But I've had a lot of luck with that app, so it's been kind of fun.
And this is this whole thing where people are, sharing their recipes or whatever is because you suggested that to Alex when he was on the show.
Yeah, I thought it would be nice for
Like,
people.
unless he had it in the back of his mind, but I don't think he did because I think his response was a little surprising. He was a little surprised, caught off guard maybe, and he's he said, yeah, maybe I'll think about that type of. I think that's the kind of the response he had.
The credit goes to him for implementing it because it's created such a community that it's I have actually created where I've actually copied about 50 or 60 custom presets that people have made just based on the outcome, just looking at some of these shots that I'm seeing, and I'm just completely blown away. It's a little bit confusing to kind of organize them, which ones would you use in dark, which ones would you use in, maybe daytime or, that kind of thing. I think you have to kind of learn that, but it's super fun.
Yeah. And getting back to the preview and whatnot, Shane says he should have made the delay to process about an hour to make it much closer to the film shooting.
Yeah,
That would have been interesting.
Hipstamatic does that. The version 10 has that. It's actually a whole day you have to wait if you have that setting on.
Really?
You don't have to have it on.
Yeah. It's like when we used to take film to the little shack in the mall parking lot. Dave, you've mentioned that a number of times. It's
1 hour photo.
We'd always follow that up.
Yeah.
We'd always follow that up with kids ask your parents about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a lot of fun back in the day, but at the same time it was stressful because you just didn't know if you could nail the shot. And if you didn't take notes, there was no EXIF data to look at, no metadata, and no settings to go back onto unless you wrote them down at the time. So
yeah, a lot of the old photos that I have, those notes are written on the back of them.
Yeah, oh yeah. Yeah. So jumping into mood, here's the camera interface.
Yeah, so this is a pretty simple camera interface here. You can see that this one's set to the stock emulation at 1x, which is the main camera. I have it in auto mode. You can change it to portrait mode, I believe. There's also, there's a portrait option there as well. And then the dial on the right is exposure. I have mine set at -0.3. And then along the top, you've got the flash option, the aspect ratio, timer, dynamic range. I have it set at low. I don't want too much processing on it. Obviously the camera, you can turn it around to 24 or 12 megapixel, and then some miscellaneous settings. Excuse me, but in the settings, there's a there's kind of a guide that explains everything to you. And I think the app fully paid for is about $20 US.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Now, I should, just to interrupt you here just for 1 second, I forgot to say how much Reheld was, but, I mean, a big part of that is because I don't remember. I've had it for so long, I don't remember what the price was. Dave, if you can find it,
I think
I know,
I got
unless
it
you have it.
early. I got it early where it was half off or something before it, like on a
Yeah, I did
pre-release.
too.
Yeah. So
Like, you get 10 free shots, I think, with it,
yeah.
or something like that to try it out.
What I didn't mention here was it does have a level, and there are grids there, the rule of third grids, and then
Mhm.
it is tap to focus, no focus peaking or anything like that. It's pretty simple.
Right. Okay. Now, getting back to this here real quick too, Shane likes the idea of, I think this is going back to not being able to see the preview, but he says, I really like that idea. Something to really make you think about the shot. I'm not a fan of folks who shoot 500 images and then go find the one. Yeah, I am a little guilty of that. Maybe not quite to the extent of 500 images, but I'll take, like, if it's cloud formations or something like that, I might take a whole bunch of them and then, pick a good one out of it. But something like that would not be, for me, would not be a purpose for mood, because that's just, you don't know right away how good the shot. Well, I guess you'll know once you look at the image, look at it back again. But yeah, I'm just never been one to shoot that many of anything, not as a rule anyway. But so that's the camera interface, so something to talk about here, Dwight, real quick too, is when you're in the camera selections,
Mhm.
there's 3 of each in the 1X and the 4X, I believe, is there not?
I think for sure on the main one. Let me just check real quick.
I'm pretty sure the 4X gives you 3 options as well.
No.
So,
Oh, yeah, you're right, Greg. So 4, 5,
yeah.
and 8.
Okay, so what that's doing for the iPhone 17 Pro anyway, it's 4, and 4 is completely optical.
Yeah.
8 would be the equivalent of the optical quality 8 times that they talk about, and then the 5 times is obviously digital zoom.
Well, it probably doesn't have the Apple Deep Fusion
No,
on that 8
no, it
times.
won't.
So, yeah.
But yeah, I just thought that was worth mentioning. With all the different focal lengths that are available, type of thing.
Yeah.
So
if
then
you
you
go
get into
back
the
to the
film.
previous screen, just real quick,
Mhm.
and see where it says
Yep.
stock, if you tap that, you'll get
Oh,
what's
okay.
up on the next screen.
All right.
So here's where you can slide across and pick your emulation. The quality and the tones, all that stuff are built into the recipe. So I usually just kind of leave those alone. You can play with them. You can go to, you can adjust those sliders. And what this screen does is this pool shot with the house kind of gives you an idea of what it's going to look like when you take the picture. Obviously, the environment you're in will make it look different, but this kind of gives you an idea of what the emulation, at least the recipe that you've got, is what's going to be used when you take the shot. So to take the shot, you just hit the camera button again down on the bottom, and it'll open up the
Mhm.
camera.
Now, the quality, that's basically your ISO setting,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because it was 100, 200, 400,
Yep.
800, so on. And then the tone, I believe that is more like the contrast
Yeah.
setting type of thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then the manage button up on the top, on the upper left, you can kind of
Mhm.
rearrange all your emulations. And you start putting 30 or 40 of the custom ones in there, and it gets pretty wild.
Yeah. Yeah. And the guide is really good.
Mm-hmm.
The guide really explains things well. It's like an ebook
Yeah.
built right into the app. So, if you have mood, or if you're going to get mood, look at the guide, and it'll explain a lot of things that maybe we can't cover here. So then when you're into the camera interface.
Yeah. So this tells me that I took the shot using the stock. So this is kind of their photo library. So once you go into where you took your picture, you can go back and you can see this screen, and you can see up in the upper left that it was stock 100N. That was the
Mhm.
recipe that was used. So sometimes you'll take these photos and they'll drop down into your photo library, and you don't remember what emulation you had. You can always go back to the app and look here. And if you I think if you delete them out of the photo library, I think they also go away here, from what I remember.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
I noticed the timestamp is only maybe an hour off of Dave's the same day.
Oh, wow.
So you guys were out playing at the same time almost.
Could be, yeah.
So yeah, so it's a very simple interface. You know, it just it allows you to spend more time, you know, pun intended here, focusing on the shot.
Yeah, and I don't
So
see that chrome, bright, silvery grossness from the standard camera app. I'm just so
yeah,
against it right now.
yeah.
So you can also
Well, that
create a new preset. So this is where you would, if you like a photo, say in the subreddit, mood camera, if you like a photo, if there's a really nice one, people start asking for the recipe. So what you would do is where the film emulations are, if you swipe all the way to the right, you can make a custom preset, and then right from this screen you can tap those three dots to the right and get your icon and then name it, and then you can come back here and work with emulation, quality, and tone. So emulation would be the film stock, strength, high, medium, low, saturation, and temperature, and then quality. You can go through all those settings, so it's really kind of fun.
mm-hmm. And then once you've done that, you move into quality.
Yep. Oh, I did have that. Okay, yeah, quality. So you can adjust your grain size, halation, aberration, and bloom.
So for anyone who might not know, just explain. Like I think most people know grain size. Probably most people know aberration, but halation and bloom.
Yeah. So
What are they?
halation, if you look at the bright parts of an image, say if you have a light or something like that, and I think as you increase that, it gives it kind of a red tint or something to it. Greg, help me out if I'm wrong
Mhm.
there, but it does kind of change the color space a little bit, I think, of it.
Yeah, you could be right. Admittedly, I kind of asked this question because
Yeah.
I wasn't 100% sure myself.
Yeah,
But
it does
um,
some pretty cool things. You have to kind of play with it, and you can see chromatic aberration. I think most people probably know what that is.
mhm.
Isn't that kind of the blue and greens around the edges, that kind of stuff?
That's more optical stuff. Yeah,
Yeah,
like glass related. Yeah.
yeah. And then bloom is just kind of, yeah. How'd you describe that? It kind of brightens the highlights and softens them.
Would halation be the colored glow that it gives,
Yeah,
and then bloom would be the amount of glow? Like,
yeah, I think so. I'm not going to profess to be an expert on these here.
yeah, yeah. If there's
I'm
anybody in the chat,
swagging it with
Wilbur, he might know if he's in there. But anyway, yeah, I mean, it gives you some really nice effects. Like when this first came up in an update, I was out in the evening one time and I took a shot and I just cranked those things, and it just a really cool effect
yeah,
with the lights and street lights and things like that. So my worst problem is I haven't played with it enough. And now that the days are shorter, I'll have no excuse to get, shots in the dark like that. But
yep,
I just looked up halation for the
Mhm.
definition. It's a
Professor Dave to the rescue.
it is a glowing reddish orange halo around
yeah,
bright light sources.
yeah. That's what I thought.
So
Okay.
it's more for it's supposed to give you that look of film cameras where you get a bright light source and
Mhm.
it gives you that look there. I think bloom is just kind of gives everything.
Soft glow around the highlights.
Yeah, yeah. Let me see
Okay.
here real quick here. Enhances the highlights controlled by its visual effect. It simulates the glow created by very bright light, scattering into surrounding darker areas.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks for looking that up, Dave. I kind of thought that halation had something to do with a colored glow.
Yeah, it comes up around
but
the
that
edges of
explains
the
it better.
light.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, so then we get into the tone adjustments.
Yeah, so you have your exposure, contrast, and what was really cool is he recently added this curve. So you can essentially create a curve here. So your shadows, you can have like the standard S curve, bring your shadows down, bring your midtones up, and kind of play with those
Hmm.
sliders to get the look you want. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah. I think that would really, it would really fine tune your image. Like, you take an image, and then you think, okay, well, gee, maybe the highlight or maybe the midtones are not quite as maybe they're a little too dark. So you can just brighten up just the midtones and try it again and go from there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and the
that's
idea here is to kind of nail it so you don't have to do any post processing to it. You know,
yeah, exactly.
yeah,
Yeah,
so it's a
and I like
challenge.
that. Yeah, yeah. Alex has done wonders with this app, I tell you. So this is your final image for the
It's
one
just
that we've seen so far in the preview.
Yeah, so this is just something you can see it's just not over sharpened. This is the stock emulation, and you know, some people may say, "Hey, it's too dark, it's too grainy," may not print well, but I like looking at it. So
Hmm. Yeah, and the image quality is really good.
yeah, it is.
You know, I know it's going to be hard to tell, folks, looking at the YouTube video or the podcast player, but when the show notes drop on Wednesdays after the podcast comes out on our Facebook page, you'll be able to get a better look at these images. So look for them there. And then finally, this one here just blew my mind when I saw this. And to know that it's from Mood just makes it even more interesting to me.
Yeah, so if this was the regular camera app, it was super early in the morning. I would have had to, it would have probably, I don't know if dark mode would have kicked in or what, but it would have been super crunchy, and I would have had to reduce the tone curve and do all that stuff to get it soft. But this is right out of camera. This is stock emulation, low dynamic range. And what I really like about this one is how the light transfers from the sun through the water up onto the rocks and the tree itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this one's got a lot of attention on Reddit. And Alex just reached out to me asking me for permission to put one of my shots up on shot of the week. So looking forward to seeing which one he picks.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's going to be this one. That's the first thing I noticed when I saw this was the light on the side of the tree, and and then I started just looking at it more, and it's up on the hill on the left hand side. It almost looks like you know how something in a heat wave it looks like it's off the ground.
Those are
I don't
trees.
imagine that's what's going on there, but that's just trees,
Yep.
is it? Yeah, okay. But yeah, it just looks really cool.
Yeah, thanks.
So yeah, so that's a look at Mood,
Yeah.
and we've pretty well run our course on the apps we're going to talk about. So now, like I said, we had two apps each selected to talk about, and can you imagine if we went through with talking about two each? We'd be half done by now, and we've already been an hour. So I'm kind of glad we narrowed it down to one. Maybe over the course of time, when we find ourselves in a dry spell and don't have anything particular to talk about, we can jump into one of these apps, and even one of the ones that we overlooked today, and talk about just that one app for the whole show. Good morning from China, Will Newcomb. Good morning, Will. Will is the proud new owner of a 17 Pro Max, I think, and I'm sure he's having a lot of fun with it. So, Will, I don't know if you're just joining us or if you've seen any of this up to this point, but we're talking about third-party camera apps and why you would use them and what they can do and whatnot. So be sure to give a listen or a watch and see if you use any of those. And if you do, I'd love to hear about it. So I guess that's it for this evening. I can't wait till I can take this number one Dodgers fan off my badge. I got to show you this. So
He's
let
kind
me
of
see
cheating, by
here.
the way, by saying I lost the bet. You're supposed to actually be number one Dodgers fan tonight.
Was I supposed to actually be the
Oh,
number one
yeah.
Dodgers? Oh, all right. Well,
I mean, Greg, at
That's
least
all
you
right.
didn't have to
Dodgers.
go. At least you didn't have to go out and buy like a Dodger jersey and hat. That's part
Yeah.
of it.
Yeah. Well, that now just I'm trying to find this real quick as I can, and I hope I can find the darn thing. Previous location. It's on Facebook, so I'm gonna have to just hold it up to the screen, and here it is. So that wise ass Shane Mostyn in Australia gave me a Dodgers
There
hat
we go.
on my profile picture on Facebook. Now let me go. Let me do this. There. Now it's a little better. Now I don't know what AI entity he used, but dang, it did a good job.
It might have even turned you into a fan.
That looks like a real hat on my head. And I can tell you, I don't wear hats. I don't like a hat on my head. I mean, I'll wear them sometimes, but as a rule, I generally don't wear hats. But he made that look so freaking convincing. Like, it's just unreal. Like the lighting and the shading and everything and the fit. Like, dude, I don't know how you did that, but that's impressive. That's really impressive. So, I mean, and I actually had to like that picture. I couldn't, well, actually, I did the laughing emoji thing for it. So, but you know what? When it comes to the Dodgers, after last year's World Series, I thought, yeah, this is a pretty good team. But they've got a lot of money that they've spent on 3 players, I think, from what I understand. And I don't know. They're a good ball club. There's no denying that. I mean, look at what they've done. They've won the World Series. It's the first team to repeat in 25 years, I think. So you can't fault them for that. It just ticks me off that they beat the Blue Jays. We had a whole country rallying together to get the Blue Jays to win, but maybe next year. So anyway, anything else? Any last words on a third-party app, guys? Maybe an app that we didn't mention that you'd like to see us talk about sometime?
Yeah, I'm a big Visco fan as well. I think their editor is second to Lightroom as far as shadow recovery and highlight recovery. Maybe someday we can talk about that. That is a subscription based.
Yeah. Okay, so that was going to be your other app for tonight, but again, it would have taken
I can speak
at least 2 hours to talk about everything.
So for an hour, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Dave, your other app was going to be
Project Indigo, which
right.
That to me is more specialty. I mean, it does a good job in general just for pictures with like we've said before about getting rid of that artificially over sharpened, over processed look. One thing it is good at is zooms beyond handling digital zoom exceptionally well without making it look horrible and crunchy and everything else. Like in the photo behind me, like Will said. Oh, let me go this way.
Yeah, he liked, and I've seen that picture online, Dave, that you put on. That is a nice picture. That's pretty cool.
Yeah,
so it's no wonder that Will likes it.
Great fall color, and I just happened to be out and saw, on the opposite. I did some editing here to kind of make the further away hill a little brighter here and kind of pop the colors a little bit, because this fall has been disappointing that way.
Yeah. But, as far as Project Indigo goes, I was showing a guy at work some pictures I took back in the summer with that app. And I showed him from the ultra wide to the wide to the 2 times and it was my 16 Pro Max. So then I went from 2 times to 5 times, and then 5 times with the Reflex 240, and then with the Project Indigo 10 times with the 240 on there. And there was a ship across the other side of the harbor or the bay, and he couldn't believe how clear that was. So, the team at Project Indigo, it's from they're at Adobe, so I mean, it's no wonder it's good. But they're doing amazing things with that app, and they just recently put it out with support for the iPhone 17 Pro Max, or Pro and Pro Max. So that's pretty cool. Wilbur, thanks for joining us. He's got to head out. Thanks for playing along, Wilbur, and watching and listening, and we'll see you on the socials. My other app was going to be Halide because I just didn't want to have two reflex apps on one show type of thing, because Halide, they've been around for quite some time, and they're going to be coming out with Mark III here sometime soon, and it'll be interesting to see what they do with that one. The guys that developed that app are amazing. Sebastian DeWitt, he used to work at Apple. Ben Sandowski I think he helped develop the Twitter for the iPhone. So he's from Twitter, now called X. So, I mean, a couple of real smart guys. And what Sebastian did at Apple he was in the design team for that skeuomorphic stuff. Like, remember the old Notes app that looked like a notepad with the felt marker and all that stuff? That's the kind of thing that he did. So Halide is very well designed and very well implemented as a camera app. And I mean, there's a little more to that app than what meets the eye, because if memory serves me, and this is one of the things that I was going to talk about, is that even though these apps access the camera API that Apple provides, they wrote their algorithms so that it does that, but it also adjusts for a little faster shutter speed, I believe, to make your images sharper and more clear. I'm pretty sure I read that on their blog or something years ago when Halide first came out, and they were kind of talking about how they made the app or whatever. But I thought it was really cool how they developed the app, and I used to use it all the time until I discovered Reflex, and I like the user interface of Reflex a little better. Everything's just right there, so that's why I kind of switched. But they both take great pictures, and there was so many apps that we could have talked about tonight that in a show like this, in a third-party camera app, there's so many. I'm just going to throw a few out there. Pro Camera Amp. There's another one called Pro Camera, but there's the first one I mentioned is by Coco Logics, and it's a very well-designed app. There's just so many. And those are just basically camera replacement apps with more functionality. But then you get into, like, even Lightroom Mobile has a good camera in it. There's just so many good camera apps out there. And so the reason this show even came about was because somebody on, I don't know if it was our Facebook group or one of the other ones that I'm in, but somebody asked about a good third-party camera app to use. And I basically said, you got to try them. A lot of them are free to try, if not completely free anyway, and see which one suits your taste best as far as, getting around the app and the user interface and that sort of thing. So yeah, there's tons of them. But anyway, it's pouring rain here, so I don't know if you can hear that in the background here, but it's actually, it could be hail. We had hail or sleet a couple times today, but because it's Canada, and here we are. So thanks, guys. I really appreciate this opportunity to talk about these apps, and thanks to everybody in the YouTube chat for chiming in and for watching, and thank you to all the subscribers. We're over 1,000 now. I think the count is about 1,020. We want to hit 2,000 by next week, right, Dwight?
Yes.
And Dave, you're still rocking it on the Awesome Cast, I understand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Awesome Cast, and occasionally guesting on the Donut Bag podcast and talking about Steeler football too.
Ah, cool.
So I'm just kind of inching on to podcast apparently.
You're going to have to start one of your own one of these days.
Oh.
And speaking of that, I'm just going to give a quick plug here for our good friend Jack Hollingsworth. He's going to start a podcast in January. I believe it's going to be once a month. I don't know. I forget all the details, but he posted it on X and I think on his Facebook, his personal Facebook thing, where it's going to be a limited time, I think, where he's going to do it. And of course, it's going to be about iPhone photography. So we'll keep an eye on that when it's coming out and whatnot. And, we'll share some love that way, because Jack is an amazing iPhone photographer. And He's been one of my biggest inspirations since I picked up an iPhone to take pictures. So, all right. Well, I guess we'll leave it there. And thanks again, everybody, for watching and listening. And I guess we'll see you all on the next one.
Take care, everyone.
Have a great one, everyone.